From a pistol small enough to fit in a pocket, to a briefcase that can delete entire cities before your pizza arrives. From a founding father sweating on a battlefield, to one guy with a code who can end civilization before breakfast. These are the deadliest weapons US presidents ever got to play with, and some of them could not wait. George Washington is on the money. Literally, the $1 bill. He's the founding father, the general, the first president. We've turned him into a marble statue. But here's what the statue doesn't show you. The man rode into battle carrying loaded pistols. 2 of them. Flintlock, made in London, mid-1700s. Not ceremonial, not decorative, actually loaded, actually dangerous, and within arm's reach at all times throughout the entire Revolutionary War. To fire one, you had to pour in the powder, ram down the patch and ball, cock the hammer, and hope. In the chaos of an 18th century battlefield, that process took time you probably didn't have. These were weapons for when things had already gone badly wrong. Washington carried them anyway. Every single day of the war, the man on the dollar bill showed up to work armed. We just forgot to mention it. James Madison rode out to watch the Battle of Bladensburg in 1814 like a man who genuinely believed things were going to be fine. They were not fine. He briefly took command of an artillery battery, making him the only sitting president to personally command troops in an active battle, and then watch the entire American line collapse anyway. The British marched straight past him, into Washington, and burned the White House to the ground. Madison had to flee the Capitol on horseback. His wife Dolly famously stayed behind long enough to save a portrait of George Washington. The First Lady had more composure than the entire U.S. Army that day. Andrew Jackson was involved in confrontations and challenges that number up to 100 by some accounts. Most people avoid one confrontation their entire life. Jackson was out here treating them like a hobby, but the most insane of them all was 1806. A dispute over a horse race bet escalated, as things did with Jackson, into an insult about his wife. So naturally, they drove to Kentucky to shoot each other. His opponent, Charles Dickinson, fired first. The bullet hit Jackson in the chest, just shy of his heart. Jackson looked down, looked back up, and decided that was not going to be a problem right now. He staunched the bleeding with his hand, took careful aim, and killed Dickinson on the spot. The crowd was stunned. Jackson was annoyed. He carried that bullet next to his heart for the rest of his life. Dickinson's bullet, inside the chest of a future president of the United States. And here's the kicker, Jackson went on to survive an assassination attempt in office, where, fitting his luck, both the gunmen's pistols misfired. At some point, you must wonder if the bullets were scared of him too. Abraham Lincoln was not a military man. He was a lawyer from Illinois with a beard and a hat, but he was obsessed with technology. And during the Civil War, the White House lawn occasionally became his personal firing range. Imagine being a White House gardener in 1863, just trying to do your job, and the president walks out with a repeating rifle. Lincoln personally test-fired the Spencer, a rifle that could shoot 7 rounds without reloading at a time when most soldiers were still ramming powder down a barrel one shot at a time. He was so impressed he overruled his own chief of ordnance, who thought it was unnecessary, and ordered them for the Union Army. Honestly, fair enough. Ulysses S. Grant didn't have a favorite weapon. He had a favorite strategy, and it was essentially, don't stop, ever. Where previous Union generals had poked at the Confederacy and retreated, Grant's entire military philosophy could be summarized as, keep going until someone quits. He coordinated multiple attempts across different fronts simultaneously, cutting off Confederate reinforcements and grinding them down through sheer relentless pressure. His nickname wasn't Unconditional Surrender Grant by accident. Those were literally the only terms he offered. Where other generals negotiated breathing room and strategic retreats, Grant simply kept moving until the other side had nothing left to give. He did all of this while smoking approximately 20 cigars a day, looking like he'd just woken up and being almost entirely unbothered. If Andrew Jackson was the most dangerous president in a duel, Theodore Roosevelt was the most dangerous president in general. During the Spanish-American War, he personally led the charge up San Juan Hill, reportedly on horseback for part of it, while everyone else was on foot, because apparently that sounded fun. He carried a Winchester Model 1895 into battle and a custom Holland & Holland double rifle into Africa for big game hunting. He called his most powerful rifle his medicine gun for lions. Not his lion gun, his medicine gun. As in, this is what I prescribe to lions. Roosevelt killed over 500 animals on his African safari, which is either impressive or horrifying depending on your perspective, but either way, this was not a man who did things quietly. And just to complete the picture, in 1912, someone shot him in the chest before a campaign speech. Roosevelt checked the wound, decided it wasn't deep enough to kill him, and spoke for 90 minutes anyway. The bullet stayed in his chest for the rest of his life. Every president so far showed up in person. Washington on horseback, Jackson on a dueling field, Roosevelt literally charging up a hill. They were close enough to see what their weapons did. What comes next is different. The weapons get bigger, the presidents get further away, and the distance between the order and the consequences becomes almost incomprehensible. Buckle up. Woodrow Wilson ran for re-election in 1916 on one very specific promise. He kept America out of the war. The slogan was literally, "He kept us out of war." Voters loved it. He won. And then, 5 months later, he asked Congress to declare war on Germany. To be fair, Germany's submarines were sinking American ships, so it wasn't entirely unprovoked. But the timing was, let's say, awkward. Wilson was an academic who genuinely believed war was beneath civilized nations. And yet there he was, mobilizing the entire American economy, drafting millions of men, shipping them across the Atlantic to tip the balance of the deadliest war the world had ever seen. His weapon wasn't a gun. It was the full industrial might of the United States, unleashed by a man who really didn't want to do it. Dwight Eisenhower didn't carry a weapon. He didn't need to. He commanded millions of soldiers, thousands of ships, and tens of thousands of aircraft across an entire continent. D-Day, the largest seaborne invasion in human history, was his call. The logistics alone are almost incomprehensible. He was essentially running a small country that existed purely to defeat another country. And he did it. Then he became president of the United States, sat down in the Oval Office, and spent the next 8 years quietly warning everyone that the military machine he'd just used to win World War II was getting a little too big for comfort. His farewell address coined the phrase, military-industrial complex, a warning about unchecked military power and corporate influence over government. He warned everyone about the machine he just used to win a world war. Franklin Roosevelt started the Manhattan Project in 1942, a secret program costing $2 billion, employing over 130,000 people, hidden from the American public, from Congress, and remarkably, from the Vice President. That Vice President was Harry S. Truman. Roosevelt died in April 1945. Truman had been president for 12 days when they finally told him about the bomb. 12 days! He found out America had been secretly building the most destructive weapon in human history, the same way you find out about a family secret. Suddenly, uncomfortably, and with no time to process it. 3 months later, after a successful test in the New Mexico desert, Truman made the decision. 2 cities, 2 bombs. Over 200,000 people dead. He didn't pull a trigger. He didn't press a button. He signed a piece of paper and went to bed. Whether that decision was justified has been debated ever since. What isn't debated is what it meant. One man with one signature had just changed the nature of war forever. Truman lived another 27 years after dropping those bombs. Make of that what you will. Truman changed everything. After the bomb, no president would ever again think about weapons the same way. From here, the question stopped being, how do we win, and became something far more uncomfortable. How do we avoid losing everything? The next president on this list came closer to that edge than anyone in history. In October 1962, a U-2 spy plane flew over Cuba and took some photographs. Those photographs landed on John F. Kennedy's desk and essentially said, the Soviets are building nuclear missile sites 90 miles from Florida, capable of hitting Washington in 13 minutes. Kennedy had 13 days to respond before the sites became operational. His military chiefs wanted to bomb them immediately. Some wanted a full invasion. Kennedy said no. Instead, he ordered a naval blockade, technically illegal under international law, which is why they called it a quarantine, and picked up the phone to negotiate with Nikita Khrushchev. For 13 days, the entire world sat at the edge of nuclear war while two men exchanged letters. Actual letters. The fate of human civilization handled via post. Kennedy rejected every aggressive option his advisors pushed. He kept talking. He kept negotiating. And eventually, Khrushchev blinked. The missiles were removed. The world exhaled. Kennedy's weapon wasn't in any arsenal. It was the ability to sit in a room full of people telling him to start a war and say, "Not yet. Not ever if we can help it." In a script full of men who couldn't wait to use their weapons, Kennedy is the one who didn't, which might be the most presidential thing in this entire video. Somewhere near the President of the United States, at all times, there is a man carrying a briefcase. Not a laptop bag. Not an overnight bag. A 45-pound reinforced satchel containing the authentication codes, communication equipment, and strike options required to launch a nuclear attack. It follows the president everywhere. To state dinners, to golf courses, to the bathroom presumably. It has been on Air Force One, in foreign capitals, and at Disney World. It is called the Presidential Emergency Satchel. Everyone calls it the nuclear football. And here's the part that should genuinely keep you up at night. The president doesn't need anyone's approval to use it. There is no committee vote, no congressional approval, no second opinion required. Just one person alone with a decision that has to be made in minutes. The entire system is deliberately designed for speed, because in a nuclear exchange, hesitation is death. So humanity's ultimate safeguard against nuclear annihilation is essentially trust the one person holding the bag. Sleep well. On March 23, 1983, Ronald Reagan went on national television and announced that America was going to build a shield in space. Not metaphorically, an actual defensive system, lasers, satellites, interceptor missiles that would shoot down Soviet nuclear warheads before they reached American soil. He called it the Strategic Defense Initiative. Everyone else called it Star Wars. Scientists called it ambitious. Some called it impossible. The Pentagon called it extremely expensive. Reagan called it the future. Here's the thing, it never fully worked. The technology wasn't there. Decades of research and billions of dollars later, a comprehensive space-based missile shield still doesn't exist. But here's the other thing, it didn't matter. The Soviets believed America might actually pull it off, and that belief alone was enough to send their military planners into a panic, accelerating an arms race the Soviet economy simply couldn't afford. Reagan's deadliest weapon was one that was never built, never tested, and never fired. It was a bluff so convincing it helped end the Cold War. In a video full of real weapons, that might be the most dangerous trick of all. Every weapon in this video required presence. Washington had to ride into battle. Jackson had to stand on a field in Kentucky. Even Truman had to sign a piece of paper and live with it. The drone changed that. After 9/11, President George W. Bush authorized the use of armed, unmanned aerial vehicles for targeted strikes. The beginning of a new kind of warfare with no front line, no declaration of war, and no pilot at risk. Barack Obama inherited the program and expanded it dramatically. By the end of his 2 terms, he had authorized over 500 strikes, more than all previous presidents combined, across Pakistan, Yemen, Somalia, and Afghanistan. Targets were selected from kill lists, approved in weekly meetings, executed from terminals thousands of miles away. The technology is precise by the standards of modern warfare. The casualty figures, including civilians, remain contested to this day. There's no drama here. No duel at dawn, no nuclear brinkmanship, no space lasers. Just a screen, an operator, and a decision made from the other side of the world, which is either the most controlled use of lethal force in presidential history or the most detached. Probably both. If this changed how you see American history, drop a comment. Tell us which president scared you most. And subscribe. We're just getting started.